Welcome to We Took the Quest, a podcast about tabletop role-playing games and our experiences with them. I'm your co-quest master, Charles Woody.
And I'm your co-quest master, Stephen Panella.
And this episode today, we're talking about Lancer, the sci-fi war mech game. So the way that I found Lancer, that Lancer got onto my radar, was a friend of mine named Tyler Fieldhouse, our friend Tyler, Stephen.
Right.
They had sent me a link to Lancer, and it was like this 45-minute lore description, and I really loved the art and the description of it. But when I was initially watching the video, I was like, I'll never play this.
Oh wow.
And then I saw the Quinn's Quest review, and I was like, I have to play this. It just got its claws into me.
Yeah, and when you showed the Quinn's Quest video to me, I was like, the art looks so sick. The art, I think, is one of the bigger allures, second to a bunch of different types of mechs. And the mechs were a big part of it too. What they do, how they look. Like I said, the art is a big factor for what drew me into this.
Absolutely, and it's pretty much the same thing for me. So for those of you that want to know what Lancer is, essentially it is a game. It's a tactical sci-fi mech combat game set hundreds of thousands of years in the future. There's 70 pages, 80 pages of lore that they talk about that happens it's thousands of years worth of this happened and this caused this to happen. It really reads kind of like an encyclopedia. But
Wow.
yeah, at its core, you want to play it with a map, hexes or grids, and really heavily combat focused, but there's a lot of fun crunch. It seems daunting at first, but it really draws you in. It's super fun.
Yeah, it seems like a big part of it too, tactically speaking. You're not only having to consider your positioning, but also the terrain and the distance between you and your enemy, and that's a big factor that is probably overlooked for most TTRPGs. That Lancer is by the way, you got to consider where you're standing, what you're standing on, and who's in your line of sight.
Yeah, every decision in combat during Lancer matters, which sounds like a cliche thing to say because you're going to hear that maybe for every game's combat system, but it really does. Everything that you do on your turn sets things off, and there's so many different pathways that you can go down, so many decisions that you can make. So that's at its core. If you're looking for fun combat, super futuristic, sci-fi elements, that's the game in a nutshell. We kind of talked about it earlier. What really excites me about the game as well is the artwork. I highly recommend y'all check it out. I'm lucky enough to have a physical copy of it. Even if you just want some cool artwork to look at, the PDF is $25. All of these mechs have such a distinctive style and look about them that just draws you in. I want to know more about each individual mech.
Yeah, and it seems like, each mech is also from different manufacturers. They all have their lore implications. It goes deep, and there are so many mechs. It's hard to choose kind of where it was hard for us to choose, at least, where to go in terms of play style, because each mech has its own kind of play style, or rather a play style that it thrives under.
100%. Like Steven said, there's 4 different manufacturers. So there's IPSN, Harrison, I want to say the other one is SSC, and then Horus.
Yeah,
Horus. There's about 8 mechs to choose for each faction, so it's a good amount to choose from. There are, like Steven said, there are 4 types of classes. So there's strikers, heavy damage output, nimble and fast, defenders, big tanks, controllers, area of control. And I'm trying to figure if there's another classification that I'm missing.
But a tech-based one?
Yeah.
A hacker?
One, I think so. But yeah, they all have their each individual flavor. We ended up having you and Sean both in our campaign that we had. You both chose IPSN, I believe.
Right.
And your brother Michael, he chose Harrison Army. He played Takugawa. Yeah, it's just the artwork in the mechs. That's the main thing that I love. Every time I got to look at it a new NPC or look at a new potential mech or just hear about upgrades that y'all made to your mechs, it was super fun. I was engaged the whole time.
Yeah, and I mean, if you were worrying, about which mech do I pick, how do I be optimal? It's okay because when you start out, assuming you're starting at level 1 or level 0, as the book puts it, the license level, you just have a generic mech that it's kind of like a bare bones, just until you get a feel for it, and by the time you hit like license level 2 or 3, then you get to pick an actual mech. So if it seems daunting, like so many rules, so many mechs, where do I start? They do start you off slow until you can like pick it up.
That's a really good point. I didn't even really think about that when I was jamming for y'all. So the starting suit that you get is the Everest, and it's kind of a jack of all trades. And what's nice about playing with the Everest, I think, just from seeing it from third person view from y'all, was y'all finding out like, okay, I think I like, all right, I want to do more like range stuff, or like I want to do more like up close stuff. So like in those first one or two fights, I think you start figuring out like, okay, what do I actually want to do, and then you can find a mech that matches that style that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, like it lets you play with, that type of gameplay you like or what you want to be looking for with this game. It kind of like adheres to that style that you like with varying like upgrades. When you get the mech, you can put in like different types of weapons, range, up close, and it gives you pretty solid liberty in picking a play style.
Yeah, that's a good point. I agree with that. And then on the topic of like weapons or abilities, there is so many to choose from in the game. There's tons of crunch, tons of different combinations that you could make as far as abilities and equipment goes. Each of them all serving a different purpose. Like nothing falls flat really from like a combat or like a weapon standpoint. It doesn't feel like a copy paste.
Very very crunchy when you get into things, super crunchy. And despite the crunchiness of it, on a turn it's like you got to move. You can either take 2 quick actions or take one whole action that might affect the tactics in a huge way. And it's pretty straightforward once you have everything lined up. Like with any sort of TTRPG, the long and daunting parts are character creation, and once you nail that, it's sort of just know what I have to do, what's on my sheet. That's what I can do. That's what I got to do.
Building a character in this game reminds me of that scene, I want to say from the second Matrix, where Neo and Trinity go to the loadout room, and it's like this white, like purgatory space, and then the giant rack of like weapons spawns. There's so many things
Yeah.
that they can choose.
Yep.
I think that's the best way to describe building a mech or a character in here. It can seem daunting, but
A
I
lot of options for sure.
something will catch your eye at the end of the day. Like Neo and Trinity still found the things that they were looking for.
Yeah, like for how daunting the rules or mechanics may seem, the thing that excited me was ComCon. ComCon is
Mm.
such it's a companion website that streamlines the rules and displays your pilot sheet as well as your mech sheet in a comprehensible way. And navigating that website helped not get bogged down by the analysis paralysis or the crunchiness. It sort of just did everything. Even on on the bottom of the website, it tells you like what you have left that you can do. And if you go to end your turn, it's like, are you sure you still have, a quick action that you could do? And it's CompCon, COMP/CON, invaluable.
It really helps you build your character, manage multiple characters. On the GM side, you can build encounters, which
Oh, really?
I didn't utilize until like the last
Oh,
two
wow.
sessions of the campaign. So I was doing a lot of manual management of my
Oof.
NPCs and their actions, and being able just to have it all on screen on CompCon is fantastic. Yeah, I got nothing but good things to say about CompCon.
Yeah, I was excited to like that part of the crunchiness. I don't know how people would play this without CompCon. It would
Mm-hmm.
it would boggle my mind, and all the power to the demigods that decide to go into the foray of Lancer without CompCon.
In the back of the physical book, there is a like like an example character sheet, and it looks nothing like what you see in CompCon.
Oof.
So I was like, how do I manage this? How do I read this? And it just made CompCon that the more just valuable, or it just like it lets CompCon flex even more.
Is CompCon, was it third party?
I need to do more research about it. My understanding is, I could be wrong. It did start out as like a third party developer, and then the makers of the game, Miguel Lopez and Tom Parkinson Morgan, like took it on.
Wow.
I could be slightly wrong about that, but I believe that is the case. There's a credit section on CompCons, and it does list like a lot of people. So there are a lot of developers that have helped out.
It's like I said, it's a tool that made everything very helpful.
100%. Yeah, it looks like John Arena is the person who made CompCon. So check out John's other works. All right, so we talked about what we like about the game. Let's talk about what did we run. So we ran a small 5-session campaign, all on Roll20, all virtual, GM'd by yours truly here. It was pretty fun. It translates really well. The nice thing about Roll20 is I can pretty much make anything have a grid or a map. And so y'all would just give me a picture of your characters. We make some tokens on the Stamp website, load it in, and we went off running. It was pretty fun. The majority of our sessions were about maybe 3.5 hours.
Yeah, and it was cool too because this was my first time using like a hex like grid for a TTRPG. And is Lancer mostly hex? Like, do they focus more on hex, or was there a square grid?
My understanding is like hex is preferred, but you can also play it on grid. So it's really use your choice. From my understanding, like the very little research that I did for like a lot of tactical war games, most of like everything is hex, just for like line of sight stuff.
Right.
Just makes it a little more streamlined for everybody.
Yeah, I mean it was good. It was nice. Roll20 helped out a lot with it. And like even if you decide to do this in person, I would almost still recommend having like maybe laptops or your iPads to use Roll20 unless you really want to draw everything out and you have a bunch of maps and stuff. You could do that as well. It was really cool seeing it on Roll20 and the fact that you could like you said, we sent you our pictures and it was all like displayed out for us really well.
Yeah, and then I also want to shout out the Lancer Discord. So are size classifications for each mech. So it's like 1.5, 1, 2, and 3. And there is a token generator that I found from the Lancer Discord. I cannot remember the name of the site, but it's in there and like perfectly created like size 2 or size 3. And I had that for like I think it was just the last session or maybe the session before last. I was able to get like a properly sized one as opposed to just like making the one hex bigger and covering multiple hexes on Roll20. So there's a lot of like really helpful resources in the Lancer Discord chat.
Oh, nice. I was so like for my character, I played as Otto Braun, call sign the Duke, which is really cool because each pilot you make has like a little call sign, which I thought was neat. And I was this old mechanic who got recruited on for the South Dakota Mech Reserves, and after the Everest mech, he acquired his Drake frame, aka the War Pig, and it was a big boy. It was like a size 2 or size 3 size. I think I had the biggest mech.
You absolutely have the biggest mech. Yeah, he's a unit. Drake is really cool.
It was cool. We homebrewed like our little campaign. There is a huge sort of, like you were saying, there was a whole like deep lore with Lancer, but we didn't use any of it. I mean, just it's not necessary. We went the homebrew route. There are like written modules or written operations though that you could play with
On Massif Press's website, that's the publisher of Lancer, and they had 5 published adventures that you could check out. Let me double confirm that right now. So you got No Room for a Wallflower. That's their first campaign. followed by, well, the long rim is more of a setting, so just learning more about like getting more kind of like a lore build in there. So that's the long rim. It's a setting. Another setting, the Carrick and Trade Baronies, Operation Solstice Reign. Okay, that's a module. So that's 2. Dustgrave. That's 3. Siren Song 4. So there's four modules that you can run, like pre-published modules, official ones from Massif Press. I'm sure there's some third-party stuff out there, and 2 settings as well.
Segueing into like adventures or ideas we can run, I heard that Solstice Reign on the Reddits. Solstice Reign is like the introductory operation. People
Oh,
are
okay.
saying that like that's the one you're gonna run to understand the mechanics of your mechs. It's short, albeit, and there's also not too much RP stuff, which is the biggest hangup that most people have with Lancer.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe it is also on purpose. The RP is rules light to make it more streamlined, more freeform from what I've seen. But Solstice Reign is like the introductory module if you wish to have a written adventure over a homebrew kind of campaign.
Yeah, a quick line from Solstice Reign is designed to introduce new players and GMs to the game and familiarize them with its blend of tactical combat and narrative challenges. But like Steven said earlier, what I ran was just like 100% homebrew. We really, I don't want to say like I was trying to rush things. I really wanted to get in and start playing like as soon as possible, as soon as we had our group of people that agreed to play with us. Shout out Sean Harbour and Michael Panella. And so I just had a silly idea of like, what if the United States, each state had its own like mech reserves, and ours was based out in South Dakota, just like in farmland. I was thinking about like anime style, like farmland, just like some mechs walking around. And I really just wanted to capture that kind of like Saturday cartoon. I wasn't trying to do big like Game of Thrones like type narrative. Just kept it silly. Just really wanted to like have the mech shine, have the mechs be the focus of the story and like all the cool things that they do.
Yeah, and it really kind of depends on the group. If you want a like extensive kind of serious tactical war game TTRPG, you could do that. Like I said, you have to kind of do a lot of legwork on the RP department. So if it's a group of people that you know who like the RP, the role playing aspects of games, the players and the GM kind of have to work together and make those parts shine because the most parts of this game is the combat, is the mech fighting. Like that's the biggest parts. That's where all the rules are like catered towards. There's a few for downtime or out of mech things, but like you were saying, there's no like out of mech like pilot fighting. There's no rules for that, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's all loosey goosey, at least from what I remember from the rule book and seeing what everyone else talks about. Like out of mech combat is pretty loose. It's very similar to the narrative style. So I ran it kind of similar to the mech combat. So gave everyone, movement, an action to use their guns because there are pilot equipment. So you can't like your pilot has armor, your pilot has a gun, things
Right.
like that. But I think maybe in the last session we found out like where pilot's movement speed was. I'm trying to keep everything positive because there's a section I want to put off and talk about like what we struggled with playing the game. Like I have like I would love to talk about the struggles a little bit. But yeah, you definitely can, like Steven said, it's a teamwork thing. Work with your DM, talk with other players as far as like what you're looking for from like an RP wise. I think everyone really picked up on how kind of RP light I was going for this session. There was like an overall story. We did have some fun interactions, but once again, it just came down to like let's just do cool things in these big mechs.
Yeah, when it came down to it, it was like, let's get in these mechs and let's do mech things.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you want to talk about? I know we talked about a little bit as far as like adventure ideas you can run. Anything Gundam styled. I think you can pull like a lot of Gundam stuff and throw it in Lancer. Even really like I would have loved to run kind of like a Power Rangers adjacent type feel,
Oh
where it's
wow.
like a group of dudes or kids that have these mechs and they're like taking care of like extraterrestrial forces. I think that could be really fun.
I was looking, like, there apparently isn't any mention of kaiju stuff.
Yeah.
That would be a whole thing if you're interested in that. Once again, this is all stuff that you could just sort of homebrew in,
Mm-hmm.
but like,
100%. I would love to see some of these mechs just next to a King Kong or
oh
a
yeah.
a Godzilla. Contrast would be so cool.
Bottom line is, if you're a seasoned vet, especially one that trudged through fourth edition D&D, then you can get away with homebrewing a campaign for Lancer.
Yeah, on the topic about fourth edition, in an interview with Quinn's Quest, I want to say they had Tom. Tom is the one who did the interview. He talked about how he did draw a lot of similarities from fourth edition D&D and playing, just going through the combat in Lancer. I immediately was like, deja vu. It was bad. It felt like I was playing D&D 4e again, but I was still pretty bought into everyone's turns in this game versus D&D 4th edition. Every mech has like a really cool theme that you just want to keep your attention on, and I didn't really have that same feeling when I was playing like D&D 4th edition.
Right. I couldn't tell you anything about D&D 4th edition. I believe I just sort of shunted that. I know it was your start, but I think I shunted out
Uh-huh.
anything about 4th edition D&D. The tactical sort of war games aren't my cup of tea, but at the end of the day, it's sort of the people you're playing with and the kind of agreement you all have at the table of what kind of game you want to play, I think will ultimately determine how good of a time you're going to have.
Yeah, and going off of you saying that tactical war games aren't really your thing, would you play Lancer again, Steven?
I would, despite what I just said, I think I still would
Uh-huh.
because it's like those mechs. There's just so many different mechs.
Mm-hmm.
There's tons.
It pulls you in, man, and I will harp on this to everyone. If you have, the $25, or if you can find like some quick start rules, just go look at these mechs and tell me you don't want to play with them. Like, everything is so shiny, so unique. You want to hop in and you want to pilot these bad boys.
I still do.
And we just might. When I was GMing the whole thing, when y'all would take your turns, I in the back of my head I was like, I want to be a Lancer. I want to get in. I really want to play either Genghis, Harrison Army's Genghis, or Saladin. And there's like these big, like, hulky boys, very thick. They all look so friggin' cool.
And a really cool part too was each sort of manufacturer had like a kind of theme, which I thought was really cool.
All right. Do we want to get a little negative? Do we want to talk, or critical? You want to go first, Steven?
No, you go first.
Okay. We played, so I know we bring up Quinn's Quest a lot, but I think he has a lot of really good points when he talks about how. So me and Steven have played Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition before this game, and there are a lot of rules to learn in D&D 5th edition, and there are a lot of rules to learn in Lancer. You can definitely learn both. For a second I thought this was going to be really daunting. Like, I did learn the rules for combat. I felt pretty good. There was never a time during any fight where we didn't stop and I was like, "Hey, let me look this up real quick." Like, there was there was always a moment where I was like, "Let me go to the rule book. Let me control F, find the ruling." The nice thing about combat is there's so many things that you can do. The bad thing about combat is
There is a lot you can do. Trying to find the correct thing to do may seem difficult. I think it took us maybe 3 sessions before we had snappier kind of turns.
Yeah, we were really hitting our stride. Yeah, right around like 3 or session 4 out of a 5 session campaign. That's pretty funny. But even then, when
Yeah.
someone's like, "Oh, I want to do a quick tech action," it's like, okay, which one of the 5 or 6 quick techs do you want to do? And if you haven't done one before, you're probably not going to remember what each one does.
But that's what CompCon's for.
Exactly. And then just like a supportive mother, like protecting you. CompCon comes in, shows you the way, streamlines everything for you. CompCon did a lot of heavy lifting there. Another gripe, I just would have loved some more. like a starting adventure in the rule book. I don't think there is one. I could be lying. Like the encyclopedia type lore, I would love just a little bit more kind of like just like storytelling elements as opposed to just like, in 15,796, Harrison Army introduced General McGrubber or whatever. Like, okay,
Very history book.
yeah, was he a nice guy? Like, what's something of
Mm.
importance did he do? Yeah, there was really just nothing about the lore that got me excited from a storytelling standpoint. So that was another reason why I went homebrew.
I would say very similar kind of hang-ups. It's very crunchy. And at times it was crunchy in a bad way, but then other times it was crunchy in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
But the very fact that there is a lot going on one person's turn. The average turn was probably like 20, 25 minutes, maybe
Yeah,
it felt
yeah,
like.
more than 10. So if you even with three of you guys as players, like we played with three players, like we were still having like each round was like 45 minutes, maybe an hour, sometimes like 30 minutes. So you can, if you're not super enthralled with what everyone else is doing, it's easy to get a little bored or losing your interest.
Was there on the GM side, was there a combat balancing thing that the book mentions?
No. I I
Oh,
could
really?
not I could not find one. I was Googling like Lancer combat balance, and essentially
Wow.
the NPCs, there are three tiers of difficulty. So there's like tier one difficulty, tier two, tier three, and someone on Reddit was like, here's what you should use. Actually, no, there is a suggested balance. So it's like on page 283, there is a balancing combat section, but it's only three paragraphs, and essentially it just says one or two NPCs without templates, so without any like extra sprinkles or anything like that per player. So we had three players. I would typically have like five five guys that go up against you guys. Yeah, it says 3 to 4 grunts per player, one elite per 1 to 12 players, one ultra for 4 players. So
Wow.
there's not like that XP balancing that D&D does. It's just more the classification. So you got grunts, elite, ultra, and then in bold text it says, "Don't take the above advice as a rigid set of rules, but instead of a starting point.
Ah,
Everyone's going to want a different level a challenge." And I'm like, no, no, tell me what
I need to know. D&D doesn't have their CR system is famously very bad, especially with
Mhm.
in particular D&D 5th edition. It's very difficult to balance for combat in TTRPGs is what I'm gathering. It depends on your players, how resourceful they are. If they're super resourceful, anything you make is out the door and it's going to be trash because they will stomp all over it is what I usually find.
But other than that, I mean, I don't really have any gripes. Like D&D has long combat, at least fifth edition. They're still trying to find ways to streamline that. From a lore standpoint, I mean, I mostly homebrew everything in D&D too.
Right.
This is a good game. Like I would like if you like D&D and you like mech stuff, or if you just like things that look cool, like big explosion, like action movies, I highly recommend you check out Lancer. There wasn't any time where I was like, oh, geez, I have to play Lancer today. Like, I look forward to it every time.
Yeah. It just takes it just may take, like I said, like I keep saying, a little extra legwork on the GM and the players to really solidify the kind of game you want out of Lancer.
Mm-hmm.
Being at its core, a mech combat TTRPG.
And I will say, on a preparation side, from a GM standpoint, I only would prep maybe one or two times before each session. I would just find a cool looking map that was similar to the vibe of like the area that we are. The rulebook does have a really good section called combat citrips or just citrips where it talks about different types of fights that you can have, which is super helpful because the longer that I play role playing games, the more I just hate any type of fight where it's just like you gotta kill the one guy or like you gotta wait till everyone is done. So they have 6 different types of combat scenarios. So there's control, escort, extraction, gauntlet, holdout, recon. I did a control one for y'all, extraction. That was really fun. Just like having y'all grab some very large batteries and having to drag them. That is something I haven't seen before as far as like types of fight recommendations. I hadn't seen anything like that in D&D.
And usually it's just, fight a bunch of goblins, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, so yeah, a little rug room. If you don't have like a map ready, I would hate to try to draw a map for Lancer because you really want to utilize cover. Like cover is huge in this game.
Right.
As far as like overall rules though, this is pretty simple. So like you roll a d20 for like skill checks or anything like that. Anything above a 10 is a success. That's nice on like a DM side. You can also still set things like, hey, this is going to be extra hard. So you can make the rolls higher, but just having it be like a 10, everyone knows it when they roll, like, okay, this happened or this didn't happen. That was really nice. As far as attacks, you're just trying to roll to hit people's evasion stat in combat. So that's just like a d20 plus or minus the bonuses that you get from cover. I don't think it was too hard to learn, like from like a combat standpoint. Was it, Steven?
No, it wasn't really all that bad because a lot kind of translates over from D&D. And to your point on the difficulty setting, I think it's good to have it always be at 10, and you make it difficult by adding in d6s to minus from. So if something's difficult or if something's really difficult, they'll have the d20, but they have to minus 2d6 instead, keeping 10 at that sort of like success point, which was kind of cool, very streamlined. Over like let's say D&D's, it's always the DM who is setting the difficulty level.
Yep. It was nice to have someone push me aside, like, hey, it's 10 every time, buddy. I'm like, oh, okay, hey, yeah, I'll take it.
Easy enough for me.
As far as out of mech stuff, so your pilot can still have, they call them like skill triggers, so little bonuses that you can get. I think one is like fight with fists or stuff like that. Like your guy's good with fighting like outside of mech combat, just like his bare fists. Or I think my favorite is that I always remember is read a situation. That's like another one. So you could still do kind of skill check requirements for out of mech stuff. You can do, we had some deceptive or some persuading that we had going on in a couple of our sessions. So there's still stuff that you can do out of mech and skills that you can obtain out of mech that still give your pilot some shine, make them stand out.
Yeah, the funny thing about the skill triggers that I thought was like, it's sort of skill triggers for your pilots are just ways you can ask your GM to play the game. Hey, does this work? Can I use this skill?
Mm-hmm.
Seems like applicable.
Yeah,
and then you get to roll with that skill trigger, which was really funny.
Yeah, that's really it. Biggest gripe, you can get a little lost in your vast array of options you can do in combat. If you're not really looking for heavy combat focused games, I would probably say stray away from Lancer, but I'm sure you can still make some really good narrative games along with it. Just a tag team effort with you and your GM. As far as similar vibes, so if you're looking for similar things to check out, for whatever reason, I constantly think of the big semi-mech fight in the Matrix 3 where they get in those like robot like exoskeletons or whatever.
Oh, right.
And they made me think of that a lot. Gundam,
yeah,
obviously.
Anything Gundam.
Yeah. Or even Power Rangers, Zords are mechs, right?
Yeah. They're giant mechanical things that eventually combine into each other, which I would be interested to see if Lancer has like a Megazord rule set. I was thinking like, Pacific Rim. They're in giant robots.
Yeah.
Once again, it's kind of like fighting kaijus, so we're kind of replace that. But they're all piloting one mech. For the anime fans out there, Evangelion is a classic mech anime. And probably one of the best mech animes is Gurren Lagann. It's really a testament to the Gundam style kind of animes out there, and Lancer does a really good job paying homage to a lot of that.
Absolutely. Final thoughts? Great game. There's tons of you can do with it. Really sets the table for you as far as from like a character standpoint, from a player standpoint. I think you should check it out. Like if you want to branch out from D&D, or if you want a similar D&D feel but like a different vibe, I think Lancer's the way to go. This is the first ever non-fantasy role-playing game that I've played, and I had a really fun time with it.
Same. I don't think it's a if you're trying to get into TTRPGs, I don't know if Lancer is the
Ooh,
first one to go
no,
into. I don't think it's
yeah.
a gateway TTRPG,
Mm-hmm.
but that being said, if you are a big fan of 4th edition D&D and giant mechs, this is the perfect TTRPG for you. As I mentioned, it's not my entire cup of tea, but I loved the different kinds of mechs that you could make and the adventures you can have in a giant mech.
The art will win you over. I'll say it. We've said it 1,000 times. I'm telling you all, this art will win you over. You will be interested.
100%.
All right. Well, that does it for this episode of We Took the Quest. Coming up on our next quest, at the table, nobody can hear you scream. Actually, everyone can hear you scream. We're going to play the game Mothership by Tuesday Night Games. That's night spelled with a K. So look out for that and get your alien fighting cats ready.
Stay tuned.
Bye.